thank you so much for that, Frank. I apologize for the wrong introduction. Hope that doesn't mess up too much. Just another couple quick announcements. As Frank alluded to in his presentation, he does have a display table over here up front. He's got some stickers, he's got some meteorites that you can touch, have a look at and touch, and he's got the Northern Lights poster up for sale as well. And I'm sure he'd be happy to share some stories in between the presentations. We also have, to your right on the floor here, the arena floor, we've got some UFO displays. And most notably, there's a display of the past UFO conferences that we've had, some media, journal articles, so on and so forth. We have some photos and stories on the local cattle mutilations collected from the personal collection of our own cattle mutilations expert from Belleville. On the other side, we have the history of the UFO Landing Pad. And there's something else. There's the map of Mars that we just discovered here. Apparently they sold plots on Mars in 1967. And so there is the map with all the names of the plot owners on Mars. And so there's two display tables there for you. All right, moving on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Paul Boisvert, a lifelong St. Paul resident and local historian who has called the community home since 1946. Through decades of research and first-hand knowledge, Paul has become one of the foremost authorities on the history of the St. Paul UFO Landing Pad and Canada's unique UFO legacy. Today, Paul will take us back to the origin of one of Alberta's most recognizable landmarks, sharing the fascinating people, events, local legends, and community vision that led to the creation of the world's first UFO landing pad, and that earned St. Paul its reputation as the UFO capital of Canada. So, please help me welcome to the stage, Mr. Paul Boisvert.
Okay, thank you very much, Rhea. You gave that just as we're supposed to. Obedient student forever. Give me a second here to get my stuff lined up. This is, I want to just tell you something before I forget. Yep, please. Okay, that is perfect. These old eyes without glasses, perfect. Okay, first thing I want to say is something about the Ag Society, just briefly. Do you know that that is the oldest organization that has continuously been survived in this community going back to 1907, I believe. The Ag Society. It went through a lot of the Depression, it went through COVID, and they're still here. So that is the tendency. I'm not going to talk to about the last flashing light I saw was a white one when my head hit the ice at the curling rink a few years ago. As one travels throughout Alberta, every community seems to have a unique landmark. These range from historical figures of the fur trading period, including Peter Fiddler, Angus Shaw, the voyageurs, to the giant mushrooms, prairie, duck, fish, Psycha, and so on and so forth. Each of these landmarks has a very strong connection to the community in which they were located. So I will entitle my talk today as The Birth of a Landmark, the world's first UFO landing pad in St. Paul, Alberta. So in the town of St. Paul, not far away, you will find the landing pad. But how did this come about? And believe it or not, it's not a bunch of guys who got drunk one night and drank something up. It's got a much nicer history than that. Where's my poster? I gotta show you this. Those of you who were my students years ago, you know how terrible my handwriting was. And I always used to print because my cursive writing was out of this world. Well, as I aged, it didn't improve. If you think that the letters are squiggly, they are, but it wasn't on purpose. That's just how I write now. Look, 1955. That's the first figure. If you can't read it, I don't blame you. You don't have to go to the optometrist tomorrow and get your eyes checked. It's just the way I write. 1955. That's when really the whole thing started. Now, how many of you in here are 71 years old or more? Oh, not too many. Count them on two hands. That's how long ago the story of the UFO began. What was unique about 1955? Does anyone have an idea? What would be particularly unique to us Albertans from 1955? No? Okay. History lesson number 1. We in Alberta celebrated the 50th anniversary of becoming a province. Social credit were power at that time and had been since forever. And we got royalty payments in 1955. We were a family of 5 children at home. And my dad and my mom, and he went to the treasury branch and got a check for $35, $7 per person, royalty benefit from the government of Alberta to celebrate 1955. Now, just an aside from the UFO Landing Pad, what did he do with it? He took us to Jasper. That was enough money to buy gas to go to Jasper and come back in a half-ton truck. Anyways, that's all we're here to talk about. We celebrated the 50th anniversary of the province. And you have to know that the government of the day had initiated a program which resulted in a number of senior residences being opened across the province, including Sunnyside here in St. Paul. The province was very energized by a strong economic development led by the rapid development of the petroleum industry. Furthermore, communities picked up on the trend of branding. Edmonton was the gateway to the north. Calgary, Stampede City. Stettler became the heart of Alberta, and so forth. What about St. Paul? Would it identify with its Métis history or as a French community? There was a lot of talk, but little action. The next step in the UFO boom took place in, here we go again, 1960, 5 years later. We still didn't have a name. or an official name, I should say. The Canadian government called a conference in Quebec City to mark the 100th anniversary of the conference, which was held there in 1860, 100 years before, which has been recognized as a first step in establishing a confederation. The premier of every province except PEI and Alberta, the Alberta premier at that time was Ernest Manning, attended. So Alberta did not vote, PEI didn't vote. And so, at that time, our MLA was a man named Raymond Ryerson. And he had a very good working relationship with the town of St. Paul Council and the mayor, Jules Vanderbilt, at the time. Now, Raymond Ryerson was social credit, conservative leaning. Jules Vanderbilt was staunch liberal, but they got along perfectly well. And Ryerson approached the town council, and he asked if they would form a delegation to attend this Quebec conference. Still the French connection in the back, working in the background. We're going to send somebody to Quebec, might as well send somebody who can speak the language. So St. Paul got the jump on it. Mayor Vanderbilt wasted no time in accepting the idea, and he, with several other St. Paulites, were off to Quebec City in the first week of December 1960. At the Quebec conference, a couple of the government officials in attendance were well known to Mayor Vanderbilt. Subsequently, one of those officials told the mayor to be prepared for an announcement in the next year that a funding program would be established to help communities celebrate Canada's Centennial in 1967. That was in 1960, to give them a heads up. 7 years down the road, the government, believe it or not, were already planning for the Centennial. And where did I go there? My eyes have to refocus here. So, needless to say, that upon the town of St. Paul's return, the council's return, the wheels were spinning about what would be the most significant way for our community to use whatever funding was available. For a few years, there had been talks of putting artificial ice in at the arena. At that time, the arena was located where Portage College residence is now. And it had just natural ice. And if we had a hot day in February, the froth from the ceiling would drop down. That wasn't so great for a hockey town, was it? So the big talk was, let's use that money for that. And it was also recognized at the time that with the demolition of the parish hall was located where Reset School is today, that the parish hall, there was no hall large enough to host special or community events. After much discussion, a committee which had been established in February of 1961, 2 months after they came back from Quebec, a committee locally had been established, proposed that the town construction of a building which would house a 6-sheet curling rink, along with an auditorium suitable for all manner of events, consider. Knowing that, as usual with government grants, there would be a requirement for a local financial commitment. This is when the town council came up with an idea of adding, can you imagine, $1 to the water bill each month. Now, we had, you think the protest between separation, that is exciting? Let me tell you, adding $1 to the water bill was much more exciting. So exciting that we had to have a plebiscite. We had to vote on it. And it passed just barely. Needless to say that the idea was not enamored by all citizens. Subsequently, a plebiscite was held and it narrowly passed. On December 2nd, 1961, the town council received confirmation that a grant was being awarded in support of the Centennial celebrations, and that the new curling rink and rec center auditorium, which is down the way here, would be constructed, would receive funding. So it was built, $1 a month on the water bill, plus the government grant. The guys who had voted against that weren't happy because when am I ever going to go to the curling rink, or where am I ever going to go to the rec center? But anyways, that's how it was. By this time, Centennial 667 had developed a fever of activity in the community. Organizations and individuals put a lot of effort in creating ways to celebrate the upcoming event. A committee was formed to coordinate, which given recognition to each activity. The goal was to have 100 events or activities dedicated to celebrating Canada's Centennial. And if you want to know about those 100 events, you can go to the museum, or you can access their website, and there's a list of the 100 things that were counted and officially counted for the Centennial. However, the branding question still had not been satisfied, and there was no talk yet of the UFO. And we go a little bit further. 1964. 1964, a conference was being held in Charlottetown. The Charlottetown Conference of 1964. And a delegation of St. Paulites, led by Mayor Gilles Bambraba, attended the special federal provincial conference in Charlottetown, as that marked the 100th anniversary when a decision was finally made that Canada would be one country. The union of all the provinces was made at that conference. It took 3 years for it to become a reality. But attending the conference in 1964 in Charlottetown was a man named John Fisher, who had been designated as the federal coordinator for the Centennial. And he had issued this special invitation to our community to attend because he connections with our mayor politically, and he knew what was happening here. During this conference, Fisher proclaimed that the sound of St. Paul was officially being proclaimed as the Centennial Star of Canada. At last, the branding, we had a name. We weren't the heart of Alberta, we weren't the gateway of the north, we were the Centennial Star of Canada. This is when the desire of constructing something permanent to fit the Centennial brand began. What should we do to make the brand permanent? Construct a large star might be just a large thing. As with so many other things in life, a tiny spark of an idea falling amongst fertile, creative thinkers becomes an active flame. A few local businessmen, while enjoying some socializing, began talking about what might be a suitable way of building something unique, which could be identified as a part of the celestial branding of the town. Eventually, the idea that our community was wanting to be a place where everyone would feel welcome entered the conversation. Also, the fact that some of the 100 activities being planned had a celestial theme based on the star part of the branding, welcoming people from everywhere, including outer space, fell into the conversation. It was only natural that the conversation would evolve to what would be an appropriate way of greeting people from outer space. They would need a landing place. What ensued was getting the town council involved, because not all members of the council were in favor of this idea. They thought people are going to laugh at us. But they did. So, a plan was fleshed out. Some of the participants in the original conversations were local construction people, most notably Lloyd Cartier and Wally Polinsky. And one of their major suppliers, Lafarge Cement, was also got involved in the discussions as well. It wasn't long before they agreed if the construction was to be built of concrete, there would be no cost to the town of St. Paul. Lafarge would supply the materials, and Carwell's construction at that time would do the cement work. People from the community at large were asked to submit designs as to what a landing site or UFO might look like. And a lot of people, maybe some of you here, submitted designs. I remember the school kids, a lot of the junior high kids and that got involved in this, and there were all kinds of concepts. And then the main features of the UFO Landing Pad, aside from the fundamental concrete round raised platform, which weighs approximately 130 tons, includes a raised backdrop with the map of Canada, with rocks from individual provinces and territories, and the Canadian and provincial territorial flags. A time capsule, which is to be opened in 2067, contains photos and written material pertaining to life in Canada since 1867 and the community of St. Paul since 1896. Also, 2 dedication plaques form part of the site, and though it was created to serve as much as a town landmark than it was official as an official spacecraft parking lot. The UFO Landing Pad has nonetheless been officially designated by the Canadian government, and maybe Frank, are you still here? I don't know, in your business, do you ever have maps that designate where the government recognizes as an official airspace or something? No such thing? Okay. But it is in Hansard, it is in Parliament. And the records of Parliament passed that landing pad at St. Paul is an official place, designated place. It is also included in the Guinness World Record for being the first UFO landing pad ever built. The landing pad was mentioned in George Fox, the singer George Fox, in his song, A Real Canadian Town. The dedication of the landing pad took place not on July 1st, but on July 3rd of 1967. Paul Hellyer, who was the Minister of Defense, flew into Coal Lake, then he helicoptered from Coal Lake and landed in the middle of the Ball Diamond, and officially represented the federal government. Bobby Gilby. Now, some of you maybe remember Bobby Gilby. Some of you remember the Happy Gang who used to be on radio. Every morning, 10 o'clock, the Happy Gang had a 1-hour program on radio, and Bobby Gilby was a member of that. He wrote the Canada song, and it was performed for the first time here in St. Paul on June 3rd, 1967. The school kids, elementary age school kids, joined in with him, and they paraded around, like following the trumpeter around as he played his song, and sang that particular song. And he also did it, and he said, since its inception, the UFO Landing Pad has been the official breeding site for many famous persons, including Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip during their Canada tour in 1978, and then Mother Teresa in 1982. And just as an aside note, why did Mother Teresa come to St. Paul in 1982? Because the people in the town of St. Paul had raised almost $1 million from St. Paul area to give her, to take back to India, to be used in building and maintaining an orphanage for children. And the official presentation of the funds was made on the landing pad. Something else that really shook me up at the time, they had a donation barrel. It was a big one, not a little one, a big blue one. And that night, we helped people count the money. I've never seen so many $120 bills in my life. As 2/3 of a barrel of that many money. So that's the in 1990, the tourist booth, the building next to it, was added. 1998, I mentioned that St. Paul hosted a conference entitled Out of This World. It attracted people from all corners of the globe. And it was quite a success for its time. And Paul Peltier is going to speak, and he will be talking about one of the major elements of that conference in 1998. I would be remiss if I didn't say that in 1996, the landing pad also, town of St. Paul was the first small community, the first non-city, I should say, to host the Alberta Senior Games. We had 1,300 participants here at the Senior Games in 1996, and all the pins had the UFO Landing Pad, and the theme was "Come and Play Out of This World." And that was the theme of the games in 1996. A couple other things. If some of you want to, there are a number of stories about the UFO Landing Pad. If you go to BBC4, the archives of BBC4, which is the British Broadcasting Corporation, there's something about the landing pad, and you can find all kinds of things. The only thing I want you to remember is it wasn't the result of a drunken brawl or a drunken party that it came to be. There's a lot of background to it and a lot of serious thinking that went on, and in addition to some fun things. There are 2 plaques. Remember that some people who were involved were serious about this, and the town and the Chamber of Commerce, I think Paul Boisvert probably could say more about that, they focused on this theme. Let's make St. Paul a friendly kind of place. And so that basic idea was not lost in all that went on. There are 2 plaques. One plaque reads, Republic of St. Paul, Stargate Alpha. The area under the world's first UFO landing pad was designated international by the town. So St. Paul, as a symbol of our faith that mankind will maintain the outer universe free from national wars and strife, that future travel in space will be safe for all intergalactic beings. All visitors from Earth or otherwise are welcome to this territory and to the town of St. Paul. A second plaque was written by a local resident who wished to remain anonymous. She wrote the following: UFO Landing Pad Dedication. As mankind stands on the threshold of intergalactic travel, let us not forget our failures on Earth. If we are to become voyageurs of space, we must learn the true meaning of tolerance to others that are different from us. We must remember that no matter how large the universe, the smallest creature has its place in the order of life. If we fail to conquer disease and pestilence on Earth, but instead transmit them to other planets, we shall never be welcome. If we fail to travel Earth without destroying the environment, how shall we ever travel the universe safely? If we cannot develop international goodwill among all Earthlings, how shall we develop intergalactic goodwill among all beings? Lastly, if mankind travels this earth or universe armed with kindness, tolerance, hope, and good spirits, he will always be welcome. Thank you very much. Board of the Agricultural Society, as a almost lifetime resident, I'm very proud of that organization, and I think we really owe them a vote of thanks for initiating the activities of this weekend, and hopefully that they have a life as long as the organization has had. Thank you. Just a moment. I talked about, or somebody said on the table, I'll just talk for a moment about the first item to the left, on the left west side here of the table, the framed map. In 1966-67, somebody came up, we were building New Hope School in the town of St. Paul. This was a school specifically designated for handicapped children. And we needed money. So one of the things that was done, somebody said, well, let's sell plots to a subdivision on Mars. So Chewanick Surveys, that's an official company, did a lot of surveying on this area. One of their guys drew up a map and created a number of plots. These were auctioned off. I tried to find out the exact amount that was raised for New Hope School at that time. And in looking at the old books, the school was closed down by the government a number of years ago. I won't go there. But about $26,000 was raised as one single large donation. And I have reason to believe that is the amount that was raised by auctioning 88 of the lots. 88 lots were purchased. The names of the people who purchased them are on a pretty small side. There's another bigger card with their names. You might want to look at that. And I'm hoping to put the buggy in the ear of the Chamber of Commerce, because it was an activity sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce at that time. And Roland Rock was the president at that time. John Legacy was the secretary. And Ferd Gerard was somewhere in between, secretary, I guess, I don't know. But the Chamber of Commerce actually initiated that. And I think we're going to have to put a bug into them. There's some lots that remain unsold. So if they have some kind of a nice charity coming up, like helping to build a home for the homeless, maybe, there's something they can do to sell the remainder of the lots. We'll think about it, but you might look at it. Who knows? Maybe your grandfather held one of the titles, and he's long gone, and he forgot to give it to you in his will. You might be going our own one of those lots. But it's thank you very much.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. Okay, listen. We are over the schedule.
Did you know your mom had a lot?
Did
she tell you?
What's that?
Did she tell you your mom had a lot?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Number 50, I think.
Oh.
And we
Maybe I should buy one too.
scheduled an intermission, so we're actually going to take a short one right now. So if you want to have a chance, you've got 15 minutes because we'll reconvene here for 3:30. Have a chance to look at the displays. There's Frank has got some information. There is a photo booth in the lobby. Two opportunities for some photo walks. The concession is open and ready to go. And we'll see you back here at 3:30 for